Ramayana, one of the greatest epics of Hindu civilization, has been immortalized in Indian culture through the dohas of Ramcharitamanas. Tulsidas ji put his poetic genius in creating this. I have seen my grandparents recite the rhymes with a lot of devotion throughout my childhood. We happened to get our hands on the book Ramayana and Rhyme, written by authors Kairavi, Bharat, Ram and Ananya, Mittal. This nicely written book narrates the tale of Ramayana in English rhymes. Recited by Ravan Bajaj and EVIL Bajaj, it's time to let the beauty unfold. The wise Saint Valmiki wrote this epic story. In some parts it's quite sweet, in some parts a little gory. It starts with King Dashrath, who's not feeling too great. He has no sons, no daughters to inherit his estate. Kaushalya, Sumitra and Kekai were his beloved wives. They all wanted a child to enrich their lonely lives. They went to a wise man, said, "We have no daughters and no sons." He gave them a magic potion and promised the birth of little ones.
Not long after that, baby Ram came along. The kingdom was delighted and celebrated with dance and song. Then came Lakshman, then Bharat, then little Shatrughan. Everyone was finally happy. The family lived as one.
They grew a little older until it was time for school. They went to live with Vashishta in his Gurukul. They learned about weapons and battles and fights. They learned that they were Kshatriyas, noble warrior knights. Their first real monster was Taraka the Great. They fought and defeated her and left her in a bad state. When they had finished their training and were ready to go back, the sound of music and laughter caused them to go off track. They reached Sita's Swayamvar, where she would choose her man. The only requirement was to fulfill the task at hand. The task that had been given was to string Lord Shiva's bow. No one would be able to do it. This King Janak did know. Sita was worried. She wasn't sure she was ready. But when she saw Ram, her heartbeat was unsteady. The moment their eyes met, the world seemed to freeze. Ram walked up to the bow and broke it with ease. He'd won Sita's hand in marriage and was all set to be wed. Sita was ready to leave. Her last goodbyes were being said.
They all went back to Ayodhya. Ram introduced his new bride. When he saw his sons again, Dasharath's heart burst with pride. They had finally come back home after years of being away. They were back in the kingdom and they were here to stay.
But things are never happy for long. Something always seems to go wrong. Dashrath was getting old and was ready to pass the crown. Ram was the obvious choice. He was the oldest one around. The kingdom rejoiced, for this was great news. Unfortunately, not everyone shared the same views. Kaikai's maid Mantra was filled with bitterness and spite. She reminded Kaikai of the time she saved Dashrath in a fight. Kaikai was happy, for Ram was like her son. But Mantra poisoned her mind, told her it was not done.
She told her to fight. Why shouldn't her son Bharat be the king? How could she allow such an unfair thing? She reminded her of the 2 boons that she had been granted. She could ask Dasharath for anything she wanted.
Kaikai wept and wept. King Dashrath was worried. To see what was wrong, to her chamber he hurried. She wanted Bharat to be king and Ram banished for 14 years. King Dashrath was shocked and couldn't believe his ears. He granted her wish, but his heart couldn't take it. Ram's leaving was something the whole kingdom hated. Slowly he weakened and submitted to his fate. And that was the end of King Dashrath the Great.
Sita and Lakshman would not let Ram go alone. They packed and they left without a single groan.
Happy even now in their home made of straw. Even in this situation, only the good they saw. But only one thing that Kekai had forgotten to factor in was that Bharat did not want to be king. He refused to go against his big brother Ram. Until he got his forgiveness, he could not be calm. Ram sent him back, said he had given his word. He told Bharat to rule in his place till the power was transferred. Their life in the forest carried on peacefully until Surpankha decided to visit Panchavati. Though by her true form an Asura was she disguised herself as a beautiful lady.
Will you marry me?
She said to Ram. When he said he was taken, she turned on the charm. When she persisted, he sent her to Lakshman, who rejected her too, said she wasn't the one.
She wouldn't take no for an answer and slit it in between. She drove the brothers crazy. They wanted to scream.
Lakshman had had enough and his anger rose. He screamed at her loudly and cut off her nose. The beautiful lady transformed it before their eyes. Turns out it was Lanka's Surpankha in disguise. Crying and wailing, she went to her brother. He said he would avenge her in some way or another. Ravan was his name and he was an extremely wise man. That night itself, he started hatching his plan. He vowed to get revenge, to restore her honor. Little did they know, a war was around the corner. One day in the forest, Sita saw a golden deer. She asked Ram to go fetch it and convinced him with her tear. He said on one condition, Lakshman, don't let her out of your sight. Lakshman didn't want him to go alone, but he surrendered after a fight. But what they didn't realize was that it was all part of an evil plan. After what happened to Surpankha, Ravan was not their biggest fan. The deer was Marich, Ravan's uncle in disguise. He let out a sound that sounded like Ram's painful cries. When Sita heard these cries, she could not sit still. She forced Lakshman to go against her husband's will.
Lakshman couldn't leave, he couldn't disobey his bro. But when Sita begged and pleaded, he just couldn't say no. He made a Lakshman Rekha, a protective boundary. He said to her,
don't cross it, no matter what you see. Anxious to help Ram, she agreed to his condition. So when a beggar came for food, she showed inhibition. Without crossing the line, she tried to give him something to eat. The sadhu made her come over and swept her off her feet. It was Ravan who had come to finally get revenge. To take away what Ram loved most was what he did intend. They took off in his chariot called the Pushpak Viman. Sita's cries for help were heard throughout the Asman.
The brave vulture Jatayu came to try and help, but Ravan cut off his wings and he fell down with a yelp.
Ram and Lakshman came back to find Sita was gone. Jatayu used his final words to tell them what was going on. Determined to find her, they started on their quest. Until they found Sita, they vowed not to rest. Ram befriended the Monkey King. Sugriv was his name. Along with his support, a Vanar Sena came. Bali used to be the Monkey King. Sugriv was his brother. They ruled the kingdom together and got along with one another. A series of misunderstandings caused them to have a fight. Bali banished Sugriv, told him to get out of his sight. Sugriv now lived on a mountain where Bali was not allowed. He had a band of followers even though he was not crowned. Ram helped Sugriv get his kingdom back, and that is how the monkeys became his loyal pack.
Hanuman, one of the monkeys, became Ram's right-hand man. Ever since he was little, he'd been his biggest fan. Hanuman was sent to Lanka to see if Sita was okay. He was made to fly across the ocean as there was no other way.
The garden of Ashok was where she was staying. For Ram to come rescue her, she was constantly praying. Hanuman came to find her with Ram's ring made of gold. Ram's coming to save you is what she was told. Sita gave Hanuman her necklace to show Ram she was okay. She wished for him to come soon as she did not want to stay. Hanuman said he was hungry as the journey had been long. He said he needed some food to keep himself strong. Sita gave him permission to eat the fruit on the tree. He took it a bit too far and went on an eating spree. He was captured by the guards and presented to the king, who immediately decided to get down to punishing. The plan was to burn his tail, but it just kept on growing. At this rate, it seemed that no fire would be glowing. After teasing them a little, he let his tail be lit. He hopped around the city, burning it bit by bit. He flew across the kingdom and burnt everything in sight. He gave all the citizens of Lanka a terrible fright. He took this as his cue to go back to their home base. Ravan's wrath at the time did not want to face.
Armed with this new information, the Sena was ready to go. They had just figured out a way to cross the Indian Ocean. They built a bridge to Lanka with stones that stayed afloat. To keep them from sinking on them, Ram's name they wrote.
They crossed the deep blue ocean to reach the other end, where they were greeted by Vibhishan, who promised he was a friend. Despite being his brother, he thought Ravan was wrong. He helped them make their plan. He knew they didn't have long. But Ravan had two secret weapons that were extremely scary. Meghnad and Kumbhakaran were by no means ordinary. Kumbhakaran was a giant and slept for half the year. The rest of the time, he ate and instilled in people fear. Meghnad, on the other hand, could vanish into thin air. He would disappear mid-battle and fight you without being there. Ravan was more powerful. His huge army was his pride. But Ram was not intimidated. He knew good was on his side. Both sides were prepping for battle. They both needed to win. Ram really wanted his wife Sita back with him. Everyone was training and sharpening their knives. Ravan prayed to Lord Shiva, asking for blessings and advice. On Ram's side, they were ready. They couldn't take it anymore. He gave the command for battle and they threw open the door. The war started off fiercely and a lot of blood was shed. Monkeys died and demons died, staining the battlefield red. Though the two armies were not equal in power, the monkeys were brave and didn't back down or cower.
Kumbhakaran was so big, he alone took on monkeys quite a few. He just had to step on them and there was nothing they could do. He was destroying the Sena and causing so much harm until he finally succumbed to an arrow shot by Ram.
When Ravan saw that he had underestimated Ram and his crew, he knew that bringing out Meghnad was what he had to do. However, he hesitated, for Meghnad was his son. But he knew that without his powers, the war could not be won. Meghnad shot at Ram and Lakshman lost his mind. Nowhere in this kingdom such a loyal brother would you find. Lakshman was one of the finest warriors in all the land. But Meghnad's special powers gave him the upper hand. With an arrow to the chest, Lakshman fell to the floor. Ram was devastated and couldn't go on anymore. Hanuman went and fetched the healer on duty, who said he could not save him without the Sanjeevani booty.
Hanuman went to get it but didn't know which to choose. He bought the entire mountain because they had no time to lose. The medicine worked its magic and Lakshman was revived. Hanuman was the reason Ram's brother had survived.
With a new determination, the battle was resumed. He'd won it once, he'd win it again, is what Meghnad assumed. After many hours of battle, Lakshman finally won. Left was a distraught Ravan who'd lost his beloved son. Ravan had had enough. No one else would he sacrifice. He was losing the battle despite Meghnad's power and Kumbhakarna's size. The battle was coming to end. It was one king versus another. Ram and Ravan fought alone. No monkey, son or brother. Things were at a stalemate. It really was no fun. Until Ram found out a secret from the faithful Vibhishan. A shot at the belly button was the only way Ravan would die. Ram knew it would be hard, but he had to give it a try. He took his aim, he made his shot, he hit the bull's eye. Ravan realized that Ram was no ordinary guy. Dying at the hands of God was the best way to go. He asked Ram for forgiveness, putting aside his ego.
Ram and Sita were finally together once more. Things were going back to the way they were before. Lanka was given to Vibhishan and he was made the king. And that was the start of a new beginning.
The people of Ayodhya eagerly awaited their king. It was time to celebrate, time to burst crackers, dance and sing. This day was Diwali. It marked the end of all fights. And that's why every year we celebrate the festival of lights. We hope this epic story you all have understood. Remember this forever. Evil never beats good. The Ramayana rhyme. We hope you feel energized by the core values taught by Ramayana. Selfless love, responsibility, sacrifice, and the victory of good over evil. Hope you have had fun listening to this recital. Please subscribe to this channel, like, share, and comment on this video. Thank you.